The combat class was silent. Alien cadets and human cadets stood side by side, breathing heavily after hours of training. Sweat dripped from faces, muscles trembled from exhaustion, but no one dared to stop moving until Master Korvik said so. Master Korvik was not just any instructor. He was a war veteran from the Zorath Empire, famous for training the galaxy's most dangerous fighters. His claws were sharp, his eyes colder than ice, and his voice could make the strongest cadets tremble. Today, he was not happy. "You humans are weak," Korvik growled, pacing back and forth. His heavy feet slammed against the training floor, shaking the room. "You don't belong in my combat class." No one responded. No one even blinked, except for Lena. Lena stood at the front, her posture calm, her hands behind her back. She was the smallest cadet in the room, a young human woman surrounded by alien giants. But her eyes didn't show fear. They showed something else, something the others couldn't understand. Korvik's gaze locked onto her. "Step forward, human," he snarled. Lena obeyed, walking to the center of the mat. Her steps were light, almost soundless. She stopped in front of him and looked up. Her eyes were calm. Too calm. Korvik's nostrils flared. His tail twitched. "I said, humans are weak," he roared. Then, without warning, he slapped her across the face. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Cadets gasped. Some stepped back. Others looked away, afraid of what would happen next. No one had ever seen an instructor slap a cadet before, especially not in front of the whole class. Lena's head tilted slightly from the force of the hit. A red mark appeared on her cheek. Her dark hair fell across her face, but she didn't fall. She didn't stumble. She just stood there, and then she smiled. It was not a smile of anger, not a smile of fear. It was something else, something strange, the kind of smile that made your skin crawl. Korvik's eyes narrowed. "What are you smiling at, human?" Lena's lips moved slowly. "I'm smiling," she whispered, "because you just made a mistake." The room fell even quieter. A mistake. Korvik's claws twitched. His mind raced. Was she threatening him? No, impossible. She was just a human cadet, a weakling from Earth. She couldn't do anything to him, could she? The other cadets looked at each other, nervous. No one dared to speak. No one dared to breathe loudly. Eyes glowed yellow. "You will fight me now," he ordered. "I'm not here to fight," Lena replied softly. Her voice was so calm, so steady, it made Korvik's heart skip a beat. How could she stay so relaxed after being slapped in front of everyone? Korvik growled and stepped closer. "You will fight, or you will fail." Lena didn't move. "I don't need to fight to win." Her words were simple, but they carried weight. Heavy weight, the kind of weight that made the alien cadets shift uncomfortably in their armor. Korvik's tail lashed the air. Enough. He swung his arm again, this time faster, sharper, claws aiming for her other cheek, but his hand never reached her. In a blink, Lena's right hand moved. No one saw how she did it. Her fingers barely shifted. Her body stayed still. But somehow, Korvik's massive body slammed to the floor, flat, unconscious. The entire class froze. What just happened? Lena had not thrown a punch. She had not kicked. Her feet didn't even leave the ground. But Master Korvik, one of the galaxy's strongest fighters, lay on the floor, breathing slowly, his eyes closed for a long moment. No one spoke. Finally, one of the alien cadets whispered, "What? What did she do?" Another cadet shook his head, eyes wide. "I didn't see anything." Lena stepped back from Korvik's body. She looked at the class, her face calm, her eyes gentle. "I told you," she said softly. "I don't need to fight to win." The alien cadets stared at her, unsure whether to be afraid or amazed. Some looked at the door, thinking about running away. Others stood frozen, trying to understand what they had just seen. Lena's heart beat steadily in her chest. Her breathing was slow, controlled. How to strike without violence. How to end a battle before it started. Her father had taught her how to control her mind, how to see fear in the eyes of others, how to wait for the right moment, not to attack, but to end things with precision. She remembered their lessons now, and she knew Master Korvik had made a mistake by slapping her in front of the class. He had revealed his weakness. He believed strength was about size, about power. Afraid of her silence, one of the alien cadets, a tall creature with green scales, stepped forward nervously. What? What are you? Lena looked at him and smiled again. I'm human, she said. But not the kind you're used to. Her words sent a chill through the room. She turned to the unconscious body of Master Korvik. His chest rose and fell slowly. He was alive, but he would not wake up soon. And when he did, things would be different. Very different, Lena. Lenta knelt beside him for a moment and whispered something in his ear. No one could hear the words, but when she stood up, her eyes shone brighter. The Galaxy had sent its strongest instructor to teach her, but instead, he had learned a lesson he would never forget. The cadets watched her as she walked to the edge of the training mat. Her back was straight. Her footsteps were soft. She did not look back. The class remained silent for a long time. No one wanted to speak the truth out loud. They had just witnessed something impossible. A human cadet had defeated Master Korvik without lifting a finger, and deep inside, every cadet wondered the same thing. What would happen next? Because the Galaxy had just changed, and no one, not even the instructors, knew what that meant. Yet not yet, but they would find out soon, very soon. The news spread faster than light. By the next morning, every cadet on the Galactic Combat Base knew what had happened in Training Hall 7. Whispers traveled through the hallways. Eyes followed Lena when she walked by. She had done the unthinkable. She had dropped Master Korvik without lifting a finger, and now the instructors wanted answers. Inside the combat base's command room, the alien leaders gathered around a glowing table. Holographic screens showed replays of the moment Lena defeated Korvik. But no matter how many times they watched, they saw the same thing. Nothing. Her body barely moved. There was no strike, no weapon, no special device. Master Korvik had simply fallen flat. General Sorlax, a three-eyed alien from the Krell species, slammed his fist on the table. This is impossible. Humans cannot do this. The other instructors stayed silent, said Commander Velra, a sharp-clawed officer from the Trinax system. Her eyes narrowed. Maybe she used technology. No, whispered another instructor, leaning forward. This is not technology. This is something else. In the shadows of the room, a figure watched silently. His name was Director Harkin. He led the combat base, but no one really knew who he answered to. Some said he worked for the High Council. Others said he worked for something even darker. Harkin's eyes stayed on Lena's image. General Sorlax frowned. What do you mean? Harkin's voice dropped lower. She is not like other humans. She is using something ancient, something we thought was lost. No one dared to ask more questions. Meanwhile, Lena stood alone in the empty training hall. Her breathing was steady, her heart calm. She closed her eyes and felt the air shift around her. She knew they were watching. Hidden cameras, scanners, invisible sensors. Floating in the air, it didn't matter. She wasn't afraid, because Lena had already decided something important. She would not run, she would not hide, she would face whatever came next. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. If they attack you physically, protect your body. If they attack you mentally, protect your mind. But if they attack your soul, protect nothing. Let them come, she smiled softly. The moment was coming faster than she expected. Hours later, the base intercom buzzed. Cadet Lena, report to the observation chamber. Her stomach didn't twist. Her hands didn't sweat. She walked calmly to the chamber, her footsteps silent on the steel floors. The observation chamber was cold. White lights, metal walls, no windows, no exits except the one she had just entered. In the center stood Director Harkin. His eyes were sharp, but his face showed no emotion, said Harkin. He paced around her slowly, like a predator studying prey. Defeated Master Korvik. Lena didn't answer. You didn't kick. You didn't move. Still, she said nothing. Explain yourself. Her lips finally moved. I followed my training. Harkin tilted his head. Your Earth training. No, she said softly. Older training. His eyes narrowed. What do you mean? Lena looked up at him. We don't fight to win battles. We end them before they start. Harkin's heart rate changed for the first time. This was not normal, human talk. He leaned closer. How did you drop Korvik without touching him? Lena's answer was simple. I turned off his will to stand. Silence. Harkin blinked. That's not possible, Lena tilted her head. Everything alive runs on signals. You study muscles. We study something deeper. Her words sent a chill through the room. Harkin straightened his back. You're dangerous. Lena's smile was soft. Only to those who try to harm me. The door behind Harkin opened. 3 elite alien guards stepped in. Their armor gleamed. Under the lights, each one carried a shock spear. Lena of Earth, Harkin announced, by order of Galactic Command, you are now classified as a combat anomaly. We will contain you for further testing. Lena stood slowly. I won't resist. One of the guards froze. His spear fell from his hand, his eyes rolled back. He collapsed to the floor completely. Unconscious, the other 2 guards stepped back in panic. What did you do? Shouted Harkin. Lena's voice remained soft. I warned you. Her eyes glowed slightly, not with light, but with something deeper. A calm power that didn't need. Shouting didn't need violence. I don't break bones, she whispered. The guards didn't dare move again. Hours later, in a hidden room deep inside the base, Director Harkin called a secret meeting. We cannot contain her, he said, his voice low. If we attack her, she stops us without lifting a finger. General Sorlak slammed his fist again. Then we should eliminate her now. Harkin shook his head. You can't kill someone who already chose not to fight you. The leaders fell silent. For the first time in galactic history, what if humanity had just been waiting? The room filled with fear. Back in her quarters, Lena sat alone. She closed her eyes and reached into her mind. Her consciousness expanded beyond the walls. She could feel every breath in the base, every heartbeat, every intention. Most cadets were afraid. Some respected her. A few planned to test her again. Calmness, in return, it was not about control. It was about balance. She wasn't here to conquer the galaxy. She was here to change it. Her father's words whispered again. Victory isn't about power. It's about ending conflict without starting it. Lena knew she had more to do. This was just the beginning. They would send more instructors, more tests, maybe even assassins. But it wouldn't matter, because she wasn't playing their game anymore. She was rewriting the rules. In the shadows of space, far beyond the combat base, before whispers pass through the dark corners of the galaxy, she has awakened, she has returned. The balance is shifting. They will learn the truth. The galactic combat base didn't sleep that night. Every camera stayed focused on Lena. The instructors whispered in cold rooms. The guards stayed frozen, unsure if they should approach her or leave her alone. But Lena wasn't concerned. She sat quietly on the edge of her bed, her breathing calm. She was thinking about the next step because she knew something the others didn't. Master Korvik's fall wasn't the end of the problem. It was just the beginning in the top-level security room. Director Harkin stared at the reports flooding in. Dozens of alien scientists were running tests. They scanned the air, they analyzed the floor, where Lena had stood. They even checked Korvik's body for strange energy patterns. The results were all the same dot. Nothing, no evidence, no weapons, no special devices, nothing they could measure. Yet something had clearly happened. Korvik still couldn't stand. Properly, his body was fine. His muscles worked, his bones were strong, but his mind refused to send the order to move. That terrified them all. Meanwhile, deep underground in a secret part of the base, a very different conversation was happening. The High Council of Combat Anomalies had been notified. They were not ordinary officers. These were the galaxy's top strategists, the ones who handled dangerous secrets. They met in a black room with no doors. They connected through telepathic links, their minds floating in a shared mental space. She cannot be controlled. One of them said, she must be erased. Another whispered, but the oldest member of the council shook his head. Wait, he said slowly. This girl, Lena, she is using something ancient. The others listened. It's called will breaking, he continued. It's a lost method, a forbidden human technique from the First War era. But humans don't have access to that anymore, another member argued. The old voice answered calmly. Clearly, we were wrong. In her room, Lena opened her eyes. She knew they were talking about her. She could feel the ripples in the mental space, not the words, but the intentions. They were planning something, but she was ready. Her father had trained her for this since childhood, and now the moment had come. At exactly midnight, the base alarm sounded. Lena stood up without rushing. She already knew what the alarm meant. Not an attack, not a drill. Tests. The door to her room opened silently. 4 new figures stood in the hallway. They weren't guards, they weren't soldiers. They were called Mind Blades, special alien operatives trained to attack with thought, not weapons. Their leader stepped forward. His skin shimmered like metal. His eyes were silver and cold. "You will come with us," he said. Lena nodded. "I know." They walked her through hidden hallways. No other cadets saw them. They passed into levels of the base most people didn't know existed. Finally, they entered the mirror room. The mirror room was a place of legend. No one knew what happened inside, because no one ever came back, except Lena had no fear. She stood calmly in the center, as the Mind Blades circled her. The room's walls reflected her image 1,000 times, making it feel like she was everywhere at once. The leader of the Mind Blades spoke in a soft, sharp voice. "We don't fight with bodies here." "I know," she replied. "We will enter your mind." "I know that too." He tilted his head. "Then prepare to break." Lena closed her eyes. "No," she whispered. "Prepare to learn." Instantly, the attack began. She felt sharp needles of thought trying to pierce her mind. Images, sounds, fake fears, they all came at her at once. They tried to overload her senses. They tried to make her fall, but Lena stayed standing inside her mind. She smiled. She remembered her father's lessons. "They will try to push into your mind," he had said. "But your mind is not a wall. It's a mirror. Let them see themselves." She reflected the attacks back. Every thought they shot at her bounced off, and then something unexpected happened. The Mind Blades froze. Their eyes widened, because now they were seeing their own fears reflected. Not Lena's, their own. One by one, they started to shake. Their leader dropped to his knees. I don't understand," he whispered. Lena's eyes opened. "You don't need to understand," she said softly. "You need to stop trying to control others." The leader's body trembled, we were told. "You were dangerous." Lena stepped forward, her voice still gentle. "Only if you force me to be." The Mind Blades looked at each other, and then, for the first time in galactic history, they did something no Mind Blade had ever done. They lowered their weapons and bowed back in the control room. Director Harkin watched the scene unfold on the screen. His hands were cold. "They're bowing to her," he whispered. The generals around him stared in shock. "This is not just about combat anymore," Harkin said. "This is about influence." In the mirror room, Lena helped the Mind Blade leader to his feet. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "Because you don't need to fight me," she answered. "I'm not your enemy." His silver eyes blinked slowly. "Then why are you here?" Lena looked at her reflection in the mirrored walls. "To teach you something," she said. "Everyone here is training for war. But war is not strength." She turned to face him directly. "Stopping war is real strength." Word of the event spread again. First whispers, then rumors, then fear. Some alien cadets started to avoid Lena. Others watched her with quiet respect. A few tried to copy her calm breathing, wondering if they could learn what she knew. But none of them could not, because Lena wasn't using secret weapons or technology. She was using something far more rare. Understanding days later. The High Council met again. Their voices were sharper this time. "She is shifting the base dynamic. She is creating doubt. She must be stopped before the entire galaxy follows her example." But the oldest member spoke again. "You don't understand," he said slowly. "This is evolution." They didn't like the word, but deep down they knew he was right. Back in her quarters, Lena received a secret message. It came through a soft pulse in her neural implant. Only 5 words appeared in her mind. "They are sending the collector." Her heart paused for a brief second. The collector was not an instructor, not a warrior, not even an assassin. The collector was something else, something worse, someone who erased problems quietly. Permanently. Lena took a deep breath, so it was happening. Faster than she thought. But she was ready. She sat down calmly on the floor. Her father's voice echoed in her mind one last time. "When they send the collector, do not prepare for battle. Prepare for truth." Lena closed her eyes and smiled. Far away, on a cold ship, at the edge of the galaxy. The collector received his orders. 1 human, 1 target. Simple. He adjusted his gloves. No mistakes, he whispered. But deep in his mind, something strange happened. For the first time in centuries, the collector felt uneasy. The coldest part of the galaxy is not space. It's the mind of the collector. He had no friends, no enemies, only tasks. He had erased kings, generals, and entire governments without leaving a trace. He was the galaxy's quiet solution when problems became too dangerous. And now, Lena was his next task. The ship carrying the collector moved silently through hyperspace. No noise, no crew, only him inside his dark cabin. He prepared for the job. He studied Lena's file again. Age, 19. Species, human. Status, cadet. But something didn't make sense. Why did the High Council send him for a cadet? He read deeper into the file. The combat instructor had been defeated. The mind blades had bowed to her. And now, Lena's breathing techniques. Some had even started refusing orders to fight. Terrified they were losing it. Back at the Galactic Combat Base, Lena stood in the training yard. It was early morning. Cold wind brushed her face. She knew the collector was coming, and she also knew that no one survived once he arrived. But she didn't run. She waited. Her heart was steady. Her mind was clear. Her father's lessons had prepared her for this moment. Inside the base, Director Harkin watched the sky on the main screen. Him should we warn the cadets. He had seen the collector work before. There would be no fight, no ship was seen, no entry detected. One moment, the training yard was empty. The next moment, he was standing there, tall, wearing black gloves, his face covered by a thin mask that showed no eyes, no mouth, just a smooth surface. Like glass, Lena looked at him calmly. She didn't speak, neither did he. The other cadets froze. Some hid behind walls, others watched from windows. No one dared to breathe. Too loudly, they all knew who he was, the collector, the one who erased people like changing a page in a book. But Lena stayed still. She waited. The collector slowly walked toward her. No weapon was visible, but he didn't need one. His very presence was enough. When he stopped in front of her, the air between them became heavy. He spoke softly. "Come with me." His voice was like cold steel. They walked together into the quiet chamber, a place even the instructors were not allowed to enter. Once the door closed, no sound could leave, no camera could record. It was built for one reason. ERASURE. Inside the quiet chamber, there was only one chair. The collector pointed to it. "Sit." Lena sat down. Her eyes didn't blink. The collector stood in front of her. "You understand why I'm here?" Lena nodded. Double quotes. "Yes. I am not here to fight you. I know. I'm here to erase you." Lena smiled slightly. "I know that too," for the first time in centuries. The collector hesitated. No one had ever smiled at him before an erasure. Usually they begged or cried or screamed. But this girl, she waited. Certain, he tilted his head. "Why aren't you afraid?" Lena's voice was soft but steady. "Because you don't erase bodies, you erase ideas." That made the collector pause again. He had spent centuries removing problems from the galaxy. Leaders who asked too many questions, scientists who discovered forbidden knowledge, soldiers who refused brutal orders, and now this human girl, but her words hit something. Inside him, he had never thought of it like that. He didn't remove people, he removed ideas. He tried to push the thought away, but the idea stayed in his mind. Lena spoke again, her eyes clear. "I know how you work. You remove the person so the idea dies with them." Lena looked straight at him, because the idea has already spread. Outside the quiet chamber, the base was changing. Alien cadets practiced new breathing techniques in secret. They whispered about Lena's strength. Some refused orders to hurt. Weaker species during practice drills, small cracks were appearing in the foundation of the old system, and those cracks were growing. Inside the chamber, the collector stood silently. Lena, him, not the mask, not the mission, but the mind underneath. She spoke softly. "Who erases you, collector?" He flinched, just a little. "When you remove someone's mind from the galaxy, who removes yours?" He said nothing. She continued. "You've spent centuries doing this. But you're still here, carrying every memory of every person you erased. That's a heavy weight. The room became colder. The collector's hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from something worse. Realization. Lena kept going, her voice gentle. I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to set you free. The collector's mask shimmered. For the first time, a crack appeared in the glass surface. A small line, barely visible, but it was there. I don't feel anything, he whispered. Lena smiled kindly. That's not true. You feel everything. You've just buried it. The collector's mind raced. He had always followed orders. Erase, move on, repeat. But now, a new idea was growing inside him. And it wasn't Lena's idea, it was his own. What do you want from me? He asked softly. Lena leaned forward. Nothing. Just want you to stop. Not me, yourself. Silence filled the chamber. For the first time in his life, the collector lowered his hand. No ERASURE. No disappearance, just a choice. And he made it. Outside the quiet chamber, the officers waited for the signal. When no signal came, they grew nervous. The door opened, the collector stepped out. But he wasn't the same. His mask had a crack across it, his gloves were gone, and for the first time ever, he spoke to the officers not as a tool but as a person. She stays, he said. Lena stays. Unable to speak, the galaxy's most feared eraser had just refused a command, and that had never happened before. Back in the quiet chamber, Lena sat quietly. She knew the hardest part was just beginning. Changing one mind was easy. Changing a galaxy was harder, but now it had started. For real, the collector stood outside, staring at the stars. His mind whispered something new. Not a mission, not a command, a memory. His own memory, one he had buried long ago. A voice from his past, a teacher who once told him, you can erase people, but you cannot erase truth. And now, he finally understood. Lena walked up beside him. She didn't speak, she just stood there, breathing calmly, and for the first time in centuries, the collector breathed with her. No fear, no orders, just life. Far across the galaxy, the High Council received the report. The room fell into silence. One word flashed on their private screens. They had lost control of the collector, and worse, they had failed to erase the girl. The council leader whispered coldly, then send the shadows. But even as he spoke, doubt entered his mind. Because deep down, he wondered what if the idea was already too big to stop. The shadows were coming. They were not soldiers, they were not assassins, they were worse. The shadows were creatures built in secret by the High Council, made from forgotten science, created for one purpose only, to erase ideas completely, where the collector stopped actions. The shadows erased thoughts. They could remove memories from entire cities. They could make people forget their own families. And now, they were coming for Lena, inside the galactic combat base. A strange feeling filled the air. Cadets whispered in corners. Even the alien instructors avoided the hallways. Everyone had heard the stories. When the shadows arrived, history itself changed. Records vanished. Memories disappeared. Whole wars were erased from minds like dust from a table. And now, those creatures were heading for one small human cadet. Lena knew they were coming. She felt it in her bones. But she wasn't afraid. She had faced fear before. This was something else. This was a test of truth. Her father's words came back to her again. Truth cannot be destroyed. Lena, only hidden. But if you breathe calmly, you'll find it again. In the control room, Director Harkin spoke into a silent microphone. We have a problem. His message went directly to the High Council. But there was no reply, only static. That was when he knew. The shadows had already left their chamber. They were in motion, and no message could stop them now, above the base. The sky turned darker. From clouds, from something else, the air shimmered. Time slowed, and the shadows arrived. No ship was seen, no noise was heard. One moment the sky was normal, the next moment the shadows stood on the ground. They had no faces, no shapes humans could understand. They looked like pieces of space had come to life. Black holes in the shape of beings. Their bodies moved like smoke. But darker than anything natural, Lena stood in the center of the training yard. She didn't run, she didn't hide, she simply watched. Her breathing was steady, Slow in, slow out. The cadets watched from behind. Walls, some trembled, some cried silently, but no one interfered, because no one ever stopped the shadows. The shadows spoke without words. Their message went straight into the minds of everyone. Nearby, it felt like cold needles sliding into thoughts. We will now remove the idea. Their voice was not sound, it was vibration. It shook the bones. It shook the bones. It made eyes water. Lena's heart remained calm. Her body was still, but her mind was ready. The shadows reached out their dark hands toward her. Their power was not physical, it was mental. They entered her mind, looking for the idea, looking for the source of her strength. They planned to remove it, like pulling a thread from cloth. Once removed, no one would remember her lessons. No one would remember her smile after the slap. No one would remember anything. But something strange happened. When the shadows reached inside her mind, they found something unexpected. Silence, silence, no fear, no resistance. Only breathing, in, out, steady, strong, and then something else, a reflection. They saw themselves. The shadows trembled for the first time in their existence. They hesitated. Inside Lena's mind, they saw a mirror, and in that mirror, they saw what they really were: tools, puppets. They had never chosen their path. They were created to erase, but they had no life of their own, and that realization shook them. Lena spoke softly, not moving her lips. Her thoughts reached the shadows directly. You cannot erase truth. Her mental voice was, "Come, you can erase stories, you can erase memories, but truth lives in the breath, in the heartbeat." In the eyes of someone who refuses to forget, the shadows tried to pull back, but they couldn't. They were trapped, not by Lena, by their own reflection. They saw emptiness. Inside themselves, they saw that their existence was not life. It was programming, and that was something they had never realized before in the control room. Director Harkin watched the shadows freeze. His mouth fell open. "This is not possible," he whispered, but it was happening. The shadows were not attacking. They were pausing, shaking, like smoke. Trapped in glass, Lena closed her eyes. She spoke again, directly into their minds. "Join me." Her words were not commands, they were invitations. Stop being the council's tools. Start being something real. The shadows shivered, their black forms flickered. They began to lose shape. Some stretched, some collapsed, some faded and reappeared. They were breaking apart, but not from Lena's power, from their own confusion. The lead shadow spoke its voice. Softer now. "We do not know how to be anything else." Lena smiled gently. "You start by breathing. In, out. Even shadows can learn." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, something changed. The shadows took a breath, not air, but a mental breath. They let go of their programming. They stopped being tools, and for the first time, they became aware of themselves. The sky cleared. The heavy feeling in the air vanished. The cadets stepped out from behind walls. They watched in silence as the shadows slowly dissolved, not into nothingness, but into light. Bright, white light. No longer darkness, no longer machines of erasure. The high council watched from their secret room. They stared at the screens in disbelief. "We've lost control," one member whispered. Another slammed his hand on the table. "Send the full fleet." But the council leader shook his head. No, she didn't defeat them with weapons. She defeated them with choice. At the Galactic Combat Base, the Collector stood quietly. He had watched the whole event from a distance. Now he stepped forward. His mask was fully cracked now. His face showed underneath human-like eyes, but older, wiser, softer. He spoke to Lena. "I've seen many things, but never this." Lena smiled. "It's just the beginning." The cadets gathered around her. Alien cadets, human cadets, even instructors. They didn't fully understand what had happened, but they knew one thing. Something had changed forever. The next day, something unusual occurred. No one gave orders, no one followed ranks. Instead, they trained together, not as enemies, not as rivals, but as equals. They shared breathing, techniques, they shared stories, and they shared silence dashed together far away. The High Council met again. The leader spoke softly. "We can't stop this with force." "Then what do we do?" another asked. The leader's eyes were cold. We wait, because the most dangerous idea is not rebellion, it's unity. And if they succeed, the galaxy will never be the same. Lena stood under the stars that night. She looked up, breathing softly in-out beside her. The collector stood quietly. The shadows were gone but not destroyed. They had become something new, something free, and somewhere, across the stars, other beings began to notice. Ideas were spreading, whispers were growing. The galaxy was changing, and this time no one could stop it because truth had awakened, and truth doesn't die. The galaxy was no longer quiet. Something had shifted. Leaders from powerful worlds sent secret messages to each other. They spoke in codes, using hidden channels. But no matter how careful they were, one word kept appearing in their messages to Lena. On the surface, she was just a human cadet. But now, she was the girl who had changed the shadows. She was the girl who made creatures of destruction choose their own path. That had never happened before in galactic history, and leaders were afraid, very afraid. Inside the combat base, Lena sat quietly in the training yard. Her hands rested on her knees. Her breathing was calm. She wasn't thinking about power. She wasn't thinking about victory. She was thinking about silence, about stillness, about how easy it was for the galaxy to forget simple things. The collector stood nearby. His face was no longer hidden. His mask had fallen days ago, and he never picked it up again. "Do you know what you've done?" he asked softly. Lena looked at him, her eyes calm. "I showed them a mirror," she said. The collector smiled a little. Mirrors can be dangerous. Above them, a new ship entered orbit. It was not a warship. It was worse. It was a council observation vessel, silent, invisible to most sensors inside. The council's top spy watched Lena from behind unblinking eyes. Her name was Veltra, and she was known as the Unseen Blade. Veltra had erased entire civilizations without anyone knowing she was there. Now, she had one mission: not to kill Lena, not to destroy her body, but to erase her idea from the galaxy. Permanently. Veltra sent a message to the High Council. Her voice was sharp, cold, without emotion. "She is still human," she said. "She has weaknesses. I will find them." Back on the ground, Lena stood up from the training yard. Her friend Kalen, the alien cadet with green eyes, walked beside her. "Do you feel it?" he whispered. Lena nodded. "They're watching." Kellen's throat tightened. "What are we going to do?" Lena smiled gently. That night, Veltra entered the combat base without being seen. No camera caught her. No alarm sounded. She moved like wind, silent, precise. She found Lena's room, but it was empty. Only a simple note was left on the bed. It said 3 words: "We are." Waiting, Veltra froze for a moment. Her heart, usually cold, skipped a beat. Was this a trap? She activated her invisibility cloak again and left the room. But as she moved through the hallways, something strange happened. The walls seemed to breathe. She reached the central courtyard, and there Lena stood, in the moonlight.com, ready her. Eyes locked on Veltra's location, even though Veltra was invisible. "I see you," Lena whispered. Veltra's body stiffened. That was impossible. Her tech was perfect. Her cloak couldn't be broken. But Lena was not using tech. She was using awareness. She could feel Veltra's presence, like sensing wind change, direction. Veltra stepped out of the shadows, her cloak deactivated. Her armor shimmered in the moonlight. "I came to end this," she said flatly. Lena tilted her head slightly. "What is this?" she asked. Veltra narrowed her eyes. "The idea of you. The infection of thought. The danger of unity." Lena smiled softly. "That's not something you can erase with a knife." Veltra's hand moved to her side. She carried no weapon. She didn't need one. Her mind was sharper than any blade. She reached out with her thoughts. Her skill was mental warfare. Whispers that cracked the strongest minds, she sent her mental attack toward Lena. But Lena's mind was like water. The attack entered, but didn't stick. The thoughts slipped away like drops of rain into a river. Veltra tried harder. She pushed deeper, sending images of fear, failure, and pain. Still, Lena stood calm, her breathing steady, in-out, Veltra. Single quotes eyes. twitched. "No one can resist this," she hissed. Lena's voice was soft but clear. "I'm not resisting." Veltra frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'm allowing," Lena said. "I see your attack. I let it pass. I don't fight it. I don't hold it." Veltra's mind trembled. Her method had worked on warlords, on emperors, on generals, but not on this human cadet. The collector stepped forward from the shadows. "You don't understand," he told Veltra. "This is not combat. This is connection." Veltra clenched her fists. "I don't want connection. I want silence." Lena's eyes softened. "Then sit with me." Veltra blinked. "What?" "Sit with me," Lena repeated. "No traps, no tricks, just silence." Veltra hesitated. Her heart raced. She hadn't sat in silence since. She was a child. Her life had been noise, orders, missions, destruction. But something in Lena's voice felt safe against all her training. Veltra slowly sat down. Her armor clanked softly on the stone floor. They sat together under the moon. Two enemies. One idea: silence. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Veltra's mind began to slow. Her breathing matched Lena's single quotes in and out for the first time in decades. She heard her own heartbeat, and then something broke. A memory. She was a child again. Before the training, before the council, before she became the unseen. Blade, she was just Veltra, a girl sitting by a river, her mother's hand resting on her shoulder. Her mother's voice whispering, "Breathe, my little star." Tears slid down Veltra's cheeks. She hadn't cried in years. She had forgotten her own past, forgotten her real name, forgotten who she was. Until now, Lena whispered softly, "You are more than the council's tool. You are more than their shadow." Veltra's lips trembled. Her voice was barely a breath. "I don't know who I am anymore." Lena placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Then start fresh. Start now." Around them, the other cadets watched silently. Even the alien instructors know. One moved, no one spoke. They just witnessed. Something powerful, something rare. An assassin letting go of her mission. Veltra stood slowly, her eyes clearer now. "I was sent to erase you," she whispered, "but I can't, because you were raised." "The mission instead?" Lena smiled softly. "No," she said. "You did that yourself." Veltra's mind shifted. Her orders no longer controlled her. Her thoughts were her own again. She looked at Lena with new eyes, and for the first time she bowed, not as a soldier, but as a person. Later that night, the High Council received Veltra's report. Her voice was steady. "I have failed," she said, "but so have you. Because this is no longer about one human. This is about something bigger." The council leaders sat in silence. They realized the truth. The idea could not be stopped now. It had already spread to the cadets, to the shadows, even to Veltra, and soon it would spread to the galaxy. Lena looked at the stars again. Her journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. But tonight, there was peace, there was silence, and there was breath. The next morning, the galaxy was different. No one announced it. There was no news broadcast, no alarms, no sirens. But something invisible had shifted, something no one could ignore. Anymore, the human cadet named Lena had become more than a student. She was now a symbol. Inside the combat base, the alien cadets whispered her name. They no longer mocked humans. They no longer looked at Earthlings as weak or small. Now they looked at Lena and wondered, what else are humans hiding? The High Council held an emergency meeting. Leaders from 12 galactic species gathered around a black stone table. The room was cold, silent, until one leader broke the silence. "This girl," he said, "she is dangerous." Another leader hissed, "She has no army, she has no weapons. How can she be dangerous?" The oldest leader in the room spoke. His skin was gray and thin like paper. His eyes had seen 100 wars. "She has something worse than weapons," he whispered. "She has changed the way people think." They all knew he was right. Weapons could be destroyed, ships could be shot down, but ideas were like wildfire, and Lena's idea had already started to burn. Back on the combat base, Lena walked through the corridors. The shadows followed her. Silently, not as her bodyguards, not as her soldiers. They followed her as friends, as witnesses, as part of something new. Kalen walked beside her. His green eyes watched everything. "What happens now?" he asked softly. Lena smiled gently. "We wait, but deep in the galaxy, not everyone wanted to wait. There was one group that lived in secret. They were not part of the High Council. They were older, darker. They called themselves the Architects. The Architects didn't control governments. They controlled reality. They built the systems, everyone else obeyed. And now, they decided Lena was a problem. Inside their hidden fortress, the Architects discussed the situation. She is just a girl." One of them whispered. "No," said another. "She is a key." A key to what? That was the question no one could answer. But they knew one thing. If she continued to change minds, the entire galaxy might slip out of their control. So they made a decision. They would release the Null Protocol. Something forbidden, something dangerous. The Null Protocol was not a weapon. It was not a virus. It was worse. It was a mental storm, a psychic broadcast that erased thought patterns. It could turn people into blank slates. Forget who you are, forget what you believe, become nothing. The Architects had used it once before. Long ago, on a planet called Veros, that planet no longer existed. Because when the mind forgets who it is, the body stops living. This time, they would aim it at Lena, and at anyone she touched. They didn't want to kill her, they wanted to erase. The idea of her, on the combat base, Lena sat quietly in meditation. She felt it coming, a strange vibration in the air, a cold silence inside her bones. Kalen noticed her eyes change. "What is it?" he asked. Lena whispered, "They're sending the Null." Kellen's throat tightened. "But that's forbidden." Lena nodded, double quotes, "Yes, that's why they're doing it." Across the galaxy, the Architects activated their machine. The Null waves spread like invisible smoke. No one could see them, no one could hear them, but people began to feel. Stranged out their memories, FOGGED, their thoughts slowed. They forgot why they were angry. They forgot why they were scared. They started to forget who they were. Lena stood up in the training yard. She looked at the cadets, at CAELEN, at the shadows, and she spoke softly. "Hold on to one thing." Kalan blinked. "What thing?" "Your breath." The Null wave hit the base. It swept through walls, through minds, through hearts. Cadets dropped to their knees. Some stared into space, forgetting their own names. Even the alien instructors clutched their heads. But Lena remained still. She focused. On her breathing, .in, .out, .nothing. Else mattered, not names, not past, not future, only this moment. This breath. Kalen struggled beside her. His mind began to fade, but Lena reached out. She touched his hand and whispered, "Breathe." Somehow, that single word cut through the fog. Kellen's heart remembered something deeper than thought, something older than programming. Life. Breath, breath. The shadows followed her lead. Each one focused on breath, simple, real, present, and slowly. The Null lost its grip. Inside the Architect's control room, alarms started to ring. One of them screamed, "Why isn't it working?" Another answered, "They're anchoring in breath." "We didn't plan for this," the oldest Architect whispered. "They've found the simplest defense." Back on the base, Lena opened her eyes. She stood up slowly. Around her cadets and shadows followed. Their minds were clear again. They remembered who they were, not because of complex ideas, not because of technology, but because of one simple thing. Breath. Lena looked at Kalen. "They'll try again," she said. Kalen nodded. "I know." Suddenly, a ship landed in the courtyard. It was not from the Council. It was not from the Architects. It was from Earth. A single human envoy stepped out. Her name was Dr. Ellen Reyes, and she had one message. "The leaders of Earth have received the reports," she said calmly. "We know about the Null Protocol. We know about the shadows, and we are not afraid." The alien cadets looked at Lena. At Dr. Reyes, at the humans standing calmly in the face of galactic power, and they wondered. Again, what else are humans hiding? Dr. Reyes looked at Lena. "You've done well," she said softly. Lena smiled but said nothing, because this wasn't about pride. It wasn't about ego. It was about presence, about staying awake. The Architects tried to send another wave, stronger. This time, but the result was the same. The cadets focused on breath, on connection, on now, and the Null lost its power again, in their fortress. The architects sat in cold silence. One of them finally whispered the truth. This is not about weapons anymore. It's about awakening. And awakening cannot be controlled. Lena sat beneath the stars that night. Kaylin sat beside her. Neither of them spoke because some victories don't need words. They just need breath and presence and peace, but deep. In the galaxy, storms were still building. The architects were not finished, and neither was Lena, because the real battle was still to come. The night sky over the combat base was quiet. Too quiet, Lena sat alone beneath the cold stars. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't looking at the sky. She was listening. Listening to something deeper. Something beneath sound, beneath thought. The galaxy was holding its breath, and Lena knew why. Kaylin approached her slowly. His boots barely made a sound on the stone floor, but Lena spoke before he reached her. "They're coming." Kaylin froze, who Lena answered without turning her head. "The ones behind the architects." Kellen's stomach tightened. "The architects aren't the top." "No," Lena whispered. "They're just builders. They build systems. But someone else decides what gets built." Kaylin sat beside her. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Then who's coming?" Lena's eyes narrowed slightly. "The originals." Kaylin had heard of them only in rumors. Ancient beings, older than the council, older than the architects, older than the architects. They didn't rule with armies. They ruled by shaping reality itself. The originals had been silent for thousands of years, but now something had awakened them. And that something was Lena in the depths of space. A ship unlike any other began to move. It had no engines, no lights. It was made of thought and silence. Inside that ship, the originals spoke without words. They sent out a command: "Bring the human girl." Back on the combat base, Lena stood up. Calen watched her with wide eyes. "What are you going to do?" She smiled softly. "I'm going to meet them." Before Kaylin could answer, a portal opened in the air. It was smooth, silent. No flashing lights, no loud sounds, just a soft ripple, like a calm lake. Lena stepped through it, and the universe changed. She found herself in a white space. There was no floor, no sky, only endless soft light. And in front of her stood the originals. They didn't look like creatures. They didn't look like anything. They were shapes of shifting energy, patterns of living thought. One of them spoke directly into her mind. "You are human," Lena answered without fear. Yes, humans were not meant to interfere with galactic design. Lena tilted her head. "And who designed the galaxy?" The originals responded in a voice that echoed inside her bones. "We did." Lena smiled slightly. "Maybe it's time for a new design." The originals pulsed with cold energy. Their presence pressed against her mind like a mountain. But Lena stood still. Her breath was calm. Her heart was steady. Another original spoke. "Your species is dangerous." Lena's eyes sparkled. "Why?" "Because we think different. Because you question structure. Maybe your structure needs questioning." The originals paused. Their silence was heavy. Then one of them asked something no human had ever been asked before. "Do you want to reshape the galaxy?" Lena's answer was soft but sharp. "No." The originals shifted, surprised. "No." Lena shook her head. "I don't want to reshape the galaxy. I want the galaxy to reshape itself." That answer changed everything. The originals were silent for a long time. Then they spoke again. "If we let your kind continue, there will be chaos." Lena nodded. Double quotes, "Yes. But after chaos comes growth." The originals pulsed again. "Growth is dangerous." Lena smiled calmly. "So is staying the same." Far away, on the combat base, Kaylin sat with the shadows. They waited. None of them spoke. None of them moved. They knew this moment was too big for weapons, too big for strategy. This was about choice, and choice was happening right now. Back in the white space, Lena took a step forward. Her voice was steady. "You're not afraid of me. You're afraid of freedom." The originals shifted like waves. "We are afraid of disorder." Lena's eyes narrowed slightly. "Maybe you should try it." Suddenly, the space around her changed. The white faded to black. Stars appeared. Galaxies spun. Lena found herself floating in the center of all creation, and the originals spoke again. "If you fail, the galaxy will fall into darkness. Lena's voice was soft, or it will finally see the light. They showed her visions, wars, chaos, systems breaking apart. Lena watched calmly, then she spoke. All systems break, eventually. The originals pressed harder. They showed her visions of death, destruction, planets burning, species falling. But Lena did not flinch. She whispered, "That's not the end." The originals asked, "Then what is the end?" Lena closed her eyes. There is no end. There is only change. For the first time in forever, the originals were silent, completely silent. Then one of them spoke softly. "You are awake." Lena smiled. "Yes, and awakening cannot be controlled." The originals faded into the stars. Their final message echoed in her mind. "Very well, we will step back. But if you lead the galaxy into ruin, we will return." Lena whispered, "Then you better hope we succeed." The white space dissolved. Lena found herself back on the combat base. Kalen rushed to her. "What happened?" She looked at him with calm eyes. "They gave us a chance." Kalen blinked. "A chance for what?" Lena smiled slightly. To grow without control, the shadows gathered around her. Some of the alien cadets joined them too. For the first time in history, they were not divided by species. They were united by something deeper. Choice across the galaxy. People felt the shift. Systems began to loosen. Old rules cracked. New ideas bloomed, not because of war, not because of violence, but because one human girl refused to follow the script. That night, Lena sat under the stars again. Kalan asked, "What happens next?" She whispered, "We build something new." Kalen tilted his head. "What if we make mistakes?" Lena smiled. "Then we learn." Far away, in the hidden chambers of the architects, the remaining members watched the stars. One of them whispered, "It has begun." Another answered, "And there's no going back." In the shadows of the universe, the originals watched quietly. They would not interfere. For now, because sometimes the most dangerous thing in the galaxy is not war, it's freedom. And freedom had just begun. The morning light barely touched the combat base when the alarms blared. Lena woke immediately. Her heart raced. Something was wrong. Kalen burst into her quarters, breathless. "They've attacked." Lena stood up, calm but alert. "Who?" "The architects. They've sent a fleet to take the base." The base erupted into chaos. Cadets rushed to battle stations, to shadows, formed protective rings around Lena. She looked at Kalen. "We can't fight this like before." Kalen frowned. "What do you mean?" Lena's eyes were sharp. "We need to change the rules." Outside, the enemy ships closed in fast. They fired powerful weapons, energy. Beams tore through the sky. Explosions rocked the base. Inside the command room, Lena and Kalen watched the battle on screens. The architects' fleet was huge, advanced, merciless, but Lena smiled slightly. "This is not just a fight," she said. "This is a test." The enemy fleet advanced, expecting to overwhelm. But Lena activated a strange device. It emitted a pulse, soft but powerful. Suddenly, enemy ships stopped firing. Their weapons fizzled out. The enemy commanders were confused. Their technology was failing. Lena's device was disrupting their systems. It was not a weapon of destruction. It was a weapon of control. Kalen looked at Lena, amazed. "How did you get this?" Lena's voice was calm, from the shadows. The shadows nodded. They had been working secretly, gathering technology, learning enemy secrets. With the device active, the enemy ships were frozen. They could not move. They could not attack. Lena stepped outside with Kalen and the shadows. The enemy fleet hovered silently. No shots, no explosions, just silence. She raised her hand. "Stop the war." Her words echoed through the ships. Enemy commanders listened. They lowered their weapons. That Lena spoke clearly. "This is your chance. Leave. Stop this madness." One commander responded, "We serve the architects." Lena smiled. "Then you serve control." She looked at the stars, "And I serve freedom." Suddenly, enemy ships started to power down. One by one, they retreated. The base cheered quietly, not loud, not wild, but with hope. Inside the command room, Lena turned to Kalen. "This is only the beginning." Kalen nodded. "We will fight with Minds, not just weapons. But far away, the architects watched, their faces grim. One whispered, "She has the galaxy watching now." Another growled, "We must be stronger." Back at the base, Lena trained the cadets. Her eyes burned with determination. We must prepare, not for war, but for change. The shadows moved like shadows should. Quiet, deadly, ready, Lena knew the galaxy would never be the same because she was no longer just a cadet. She was a symbol, a spark, a hope, and she would not stop, not until freedom won. The stars above twinkled, silent witnesses to a battle larger than any war, a battle for the soul of the galaxy. The night was cold, but the combat base was alive with energy. Lena stood at the top of the command tower. Her eyes scanned the horizon. The galaxy was watching. Kalen joined her silently. "Tomorrow, the council will meet." Lena nodded. "They will decide our fate." Inside the great hall, leaders from many worlds gathered. The architects sat at the head of the room, faces stern and cold. Lena walked in with the shadows and cadets. She felt their eyes on her. Whispers filled the room. The council leader spoke first. "Humans have upset the balance. We fear chaos." Lena raised her hand. "We fear stagnation." The room fell silent. She spoke clearly. "The galaxy needs change, not control, not fear." An architect sneered. "You threaten order." Lena smiled. "I threaten nothing. Offer freedom." She told them about the originals, about the choice, about the future. Some leaders nodded, others scowled. The tension was thick. Suddenly, a loud explosion shook the hall. The doors burst open. Enemy soldiers stormed in. The battle began. Shadows and cadets fought fiercely. Lena moved through the chaos, calm and sharp. She reached the council leader. "Your time is over," she said. With a sudden move, Lena disabled the leader's weapon. The soldiers around her stopped fighting. Lena turned to the crowd. "Let this end." The enemies lowered their weapons. The council leader looked at Lena. "You have strength, but what will you do with it?" Lena answered simply, "I will protect freedom, not with war, but with hope." The leaders slowly lowered their weapons. The hall quieted outside. The stars shone brighter. The galaxy held its breath. Lena looked up. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs. She smiled for the first time. "We are free." The shadows gathered around her. Kalen placed a hand on her shoulder. "We begin now." And so the galaxy started to change. Not with destruction, but with courage, because sometimes the greatest battle is for what comes after. And Lena was ready. End of series.